And then hold on, but Kate, before you hit record,
too late.
I just want to stop recording.
Okay.
The settings that we can.
Thank you, Bird.
All right, thank you, Birdie. Bye bye. All right.
I sent you a picture of your own confused face. Yeah. Like I've never had to say big smelly bowel movements. Welcome to episode 2. All right, everybody. Welcome back to Table for Deuce, where we shoot the shit about all things lit. With me, as always, is the wonderful, the talented, the mostly canceled Kate Hansen Foster. I think I got that right. The author of
Hi,
Pro Funeral, bum, 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 and Midriff. If you don't have these books, they are fantastic. And I know, look at that, look at that, look at these beautiful covers, look at that, look at that. So that is my co-host and wonderful friend and wonderful talented writer and mediocre spouse. I don't know.
Wait, so I didn't bring your books to show.
That's okay. You're like that. You're horrible.
Okay. And I'm with Michael Schmelzer, who is the author of Empire of Surrender. I'll edit the book cover in, and also Bloodstone. And Michael's best described as the emotional equivalent of old people in the locker room, sitting naked and spread eagle, reading the groceries.
I have a story about that. Actually, as it relates. So yesterday, you know, Lydia's working, it's just us in the house with the cats. And so when I went into the bathroom, I left the door open because the cats, they're so needy and they cry outside the door and it makes me feel bad. And, you know, of course, that is the exact time Lydia has a break. So she comes down and she's like, what the hell, Michael? And I'm just like, oh.
When I was like taking a shower yesterday and I was like stepping out of the shower and like toweling off, like I thought I saw like a mouse in the corner of my eye, but it was just like Booter's paw, like swiping under the door, just like I don't even know what he was doing, just swiping under, like trying to feel for something.
Swiping left.
Out of me, and then of course I got like on my hands and knees, like naked, and like did it back. Like, I see you.
We need to get out of the house more, just in general. I don't think we're doing well. Oh,
so
Lordy.
So what have you been up to other than sleeping with the door open?
Other than that, really, not a whole lot. I've been excited to work on the show. I'm pumped. We have over 100 views, which I didn't think we would get there. I'm going to be honest. I thought we were gonna crack the teens.
We should tell our viewers we are in the process of trying, because we had multiple requests, aka our friend Clint, who said he didn't feel like looking at our faces, to have it stream as a podcast. So that's in the works. Since this will be also a podcast, I want to explain my outfit today, which is a flannel shirt with my hair down and a red lip, which is my Halloween costume.
What are you going as? What is this?
I am a person on TikTok watching and talking about Taylor Swift's new album, Midnight. Have you listened to it?
I have not, no.
Okay, me neither. It's like pumpkin spice QAnon, like the Taylor Swift people, because like I guess she's known for like putting Easter eggs in her videos and like and her TikTok videos and stuff, and all of it has this bigger meaning. And so I fell down the rabbit hole of trying to find the meaning of midnight, which you want to know what I came up with?
Sure, let's hear it.
So midnight is a time of day, right?
Yes.
She was on Jimmy Fallon and she was talking about, he asked, are you going to go on tour with Midnight? And she said, I will when there's time, right?
Okay,
Right?
I'm with you. I'm with you.
And then she said she likes to look at her fans' faces, like when she's on tour. What else has faces? Watches
Clocks.
and clocks,
Yeah,
right?
I'm here. I'm with
So,
you.
like, what are we facing, Michael?
Mortality. Like,
all I've been facing is TikTok for like 24/7. So that's all I have.
all right. Are you ready? Are you ready for this? Are you ready to transition
Yeah.
into the heart of the show?
Yeah. Mhm.
All right. I'm excited. Second episode, but the first time we will be doing the Toaster Roast Club, which is where we discuss a piece, a poem, a book, something, and we vote. Do we toast it or do we roast it? And we've decided to talk about Chen Chen's poem Winter, which is featured in Poetry Magazine. So I'm going to read it for y'all, and then me and Kate are going to debate. I don't know where she leans. She was conflicted. So let's see. Winter by Chen Chen. Big, smelly bowel movements this blue January morning. From the living room TV, a commercial from our TV company. We're the fastest, the only, meaning love us above all others. What makes poop more pungent on certain days? Question for science. From the living room TV, the powerful site Law, Bark Order, meaning love us or else. Years ago, a teacher said never to use the word poop in a poem. Today, the icy kiss of the toilet seat wakes me up. Today, I poop while my boyfriend shouts from the living room, "Did you hear that?" Meaning the atomic scientists who say we are now 2.5 minutes to midnight. But still, I marvel whenever poop comes out as one true platonic tube. I am trying to be marvelous and to make my enemies throw up. I mean, if you shower with soap and eat well, maintaining consistent gastrointestinal health, you should be ready for a rim job or other forms of anal play. My boyfriend and I are not platonic. From the TV, a white supremacist cites science, barks 2 sides to every, up the throat, out the mouth, the fastest, the only way the powerful will let go of their shit. My boyfriend and I are not into scat, but if you are, I hope your beloved produces the most fragrant, citrusy shit. Is shit more or less literary than poop? One winter night I got sick and pooped the bed, and he just got up with me, helped strip the sheets, carry it all to the washer. I kept saying, "I'm so sorry," shivering. I'm sorry. But he said, "What? Hey, I love you." If you watch the first episode, I love the poem. I can't help it. It is absurd in many ways. It is irreverent. The poem title, you expect one thing and it's just not. You expect cold, you expect scenic, and it's just like hot, steamy shit. It's something that is so unexpected and surprising. And I remember the first time I read it, and it's still kind of surprising. It's still grosser than I remember, and it's still more lovely at the end than I remember. So there's a lot of things I really like about it.
There is so much to unpack for sure. And I've read it now like many times since you suggested reading it again. And I'm not so sure I agree with you on the sense that like you read the title Winter and you're expecting snowflakes and snow angels and stuff. There are a bunch of winter references, which I think are important. I don't know, 1, we get most sick in the wintertime, I guess, and 2, it's this idea of time and moving, this rotation of time, and some things are just super routine, like shitting and seasons. But I did want to say something about this, because when I first Googled it to pull up the poem and read it again, And I want to just get what I wanted to read. I came across this like incredible essay by it was written in 2021 by a Princeton student. Her name's Sandra Kim, and she discusses how the poem had a huge impact on her. The way Chen Chen uses language in the poem as sort of like reclaiming, like using language to reclaim your body. So I just want to read just a little bit of what she said. One part of it is she says, I'm an Asian woman from California, 5 feet tall, with kind words and a non-intrusive desire for greatness. And people think they know me, but I don't want to be known, not in the way that suits white America. I want to exist like anyone else. And I want to own the rights to my Asianness. Then she also says, the poem traveled through its own body, scoured every crevice for some truth to give us. 3 students, and she describes in the essay that she's sitting down with some friends of hers, and they're all reading this poem out loud together. So she says, 3 students on the cusp of adulthood, just trying to survive, having no firsthand concept of gay romance or anal sex, and little vocabulary for our shit. The fact that we all shit remains a veiled truth, a vital unpleasantry of the self we hold below our hips. Our head perches itself on the neck, maintaining a healthy torso distance from the anus, because the brain's poetic, that which creates, sings, swims, wants nothing to do with shit, that which our body cannot siphon life from. But Chen marries shit with poetry, and he does so gracefully. And anyways, I'll link to that essay because I highly recommend it. I thought it was so well written and gave me a new perspective on the poem that I didn't get on its face value. Well, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I really like the word that she used, graceful. I think it is a very graceful poem. I mean, there's a musicality to the poem. There's like really interesting word choices and juxtapositions that I would have never put together. And I just think there is an elegance to the whole piece, just entirely. The pacing of it, reading it out loud, felt very conversational and natural. But there was, like I said, there's that music to it that made it easy to read out loud. Even if I'm having to say things like big smelly bowel movements, which I don't ever have to say in the daily discourse, I guess. But there are just the phrases that they're put together in such a way that just make them just very lyrical, even if they're talking about the most grotesque kind of things that we all share and do. I think there's simultaneously a universality to the experience of the poem, while at the same time, Chen does really touch on things that are specific to certain communities. And I really like how inclusive, in the sense that this is a poem that has conversations about writing, teacher talking about not using the word poop. It's a conversation about there's news or white supremacy. There's a conversation about love. There's a conversation about queer love. There are just so many of these conversations packed into this one little poem that I just think is done so well. It's so expansive without being forced. It feels very organic and very natural, and feels just great to read and be part of.
I like the part that where the poem pivots, right? And it's almost as if, the speaker turns to the camera, and just says, I'm trying to be marvelous, and also kind of give the finger to my enemies, I want to gross them out. That part, to me, it was like the shift that I needed that made me keep carrying on. Because there was, some of the images, obviously, you can call them lyrical. For me, it's like, the first opening line, like big smelly bowel movements on this morning. That's a bold way to start a poem, and hope that someone keeps going to the second line. And that's kind of how I felt as I was, reading through. But then you get to that pivot where it's, I'm trying to be marvelous. And that sort of just slaps you across the face, and to, what's the line? I have it pulled up on my thing, but I'm trying to be marvelous and make my enemies throw up.
Yep.
I love that. It's just such a fu to anybody who thinks this poem, is gross or stupid. And that part is it's just so bold. It's so in your face. And I think, I don't know, there were certain things in the poem that I questioned, like certain lines that I wondered whether or not they were useful. There's certain lines where I'm like, is this necessary? I could have be gone. One of those lines was the maybe wait, hang on, sorry. Oh, okay, here we go. But still I marvel whenever poop comes out as the one true platonic tube. So it's interesting because he marvels, and then the following line is, I'm trying to be marvelous, which, so that those lines are connect in that way. I'm not sure I understand poop as being the one true platonic tube, like not the anus is the tube. Like I read it as poop is the tube.
Yeah,
reading it right?
that is how I read it as well. I can't exactly say I like understand completely the line, but I do love the phrasing of it. I love the sounds. Like I just like platonic tube is just fun to say on the mouth. There's like certain things in the poem that I can forgive, as far as like if I don't understand it, it could be a failing on my own end. I'm completely accepting that I'm not bright. Let's just put that out there. But at the same time, like I just love like the sounds, and there's a certain joy. It's like when you're a kid and you just bang on pots. It's not music, but it just sounds fun sometimes just to make noise. And I think there's a certain element of that in a lot of the poems I like, that they're just sounds that are sounds for the sake of sounds that are just great. They just are fun to listen to, or they are fun to form in the mouth. And I think there's some of that at play, at least for me, in the poem that works. And like I said, like big smelly bowel movements. I mean, everyone at home try that. Like it feels good on the mouth, like all these sounds just coming out. Like it's great. Like
I'm
so
gonna walk around my house for like the rest of the day. Smelly bowel movements. You're right though. I mean, there's so much to unpack: race, identity, sex, sexuality, gender, all of it. And for that, I think it is a good poem. I do wonder on one of the things, having read that essay, right? And really, really enjoying that essay, made me wonder a little bit about this concept of what she wrote about as, claiming your kind of using language to reclaim your in this case Asian body, right? Is what she was saying. And I guess I wanted to know, if someone put that poem, which happens in classrooms all the time, putting a poem on a desk with no name attached, so we don't know who the author is, would we have that conversation? And so how much does the poem itself rely on the identity of the writer?
I think in a lot of ways, like I'm going to speak in real huge generalizations here. I think, certain cultures or certain like time periods, whatever you want to say, I think has a different relationship to the body, for instance, or to the body's natural functions, for instance. And I think some cultures, I would say, are a little more reserved or conservative when it comes to things that are considered private. So I think there can be a certain amount of saying these things out loud in a public way, or reading about them can be a very kind of taboo thing to break. There's like a social line that gets broken that can be really empowering. So I think that's possibly part of what might be being said in the essay. I haven't read the essay, I'm not exactly sure, but I do think there is that sense of, and I'm not sure if it's specific to any group or time or anything like that, or society, but I do think there is that taboo being broken, that like the one teacher or whatever said in the poem, you don't say poop in a poem, but that gets broken. And I think it gets broken well in this poem. Whether the poem, if it was completely stripped of author name and what we know of the author, I still think it can have a powerful impact on a personal level. You wouldn't necessarily be able to say specifically, I identify with the author as this or that, but I think you'd be able to say I identify with the core kind of emotions or universality of the poem itself.
Despite all of what needs to be unpacked or what could be unpacked from this poem, my ultimate takeaway was it's a love poem. You know, it's a weird way to write a love poem, but it's a love poem, and I think it's really great in that it presents love as, you know, sacrosanct and, you know, sacrilegious and both beautiful but also profane, and you know, all packaged up into one. You know, made me just start thinking about this idea of love being kind of, you know, really sometimes just like a very ugly thing in a lot of ways, that there's just so much ugliness to pure love. And how do we, you know, how do you kind of express that without grossing out your enemies? You know, and really showing, bearing that the rawness, the intimacy, and the, you know, just the privacy of true love, which I think is something this poem does really, really well. I don't know how much more this poem could really reveal.
When you have an opening line with big smelly bowel movements, going to the final line where there is still that bowel movement, but it's transformed into this very tender moment between these two. And it's like you said, it is, I think, at the core a love poem, and there is that sense of completely being taken care of and loved unconditionally, even in your worst state, your feverish, shitting the bed state, and there is someone who loves you regardless and is taking care of you. I think that is such a beautiful moment, and I think it is a humanizing moment if you're looking at it from a stance of like the speaker's enemies, let's say. But if they do happen to read it, if you know, that they would find something very tender and relatable in this poem.
And there's that image too of, you know, the white supremacists or the TV personalities, you know, can regurgitate, you know, they regurgitate truth faster than it's going to come out, like, you know, the other end. But I'm going to contradict myself. Going back to the line that I said I think probably could be eliminated, the platonic tube line. And one thing that I did, one thing that stuck with me is the capitalization of the word platonic, and that, like, those little details always stick out. Like, why, you know, why put so much emphasis on that, on the word platonic? And when I'm trying to, you know, make this argument that this isn't at its heart a love poem, but I think this whole concept of being sick and, you know, being taken care of and stuff, I think it goes to just show that, you know, true love is both, you know, erotic and platonic, in the sense that, you know, the lover is helping changing the shitty sheets, and that combination is really the ultimate perception of what like true love is in my mind. But
yeah, I think that is very true. I think, like, I hadn't thought about it that way, but I think that combination of the erotic and the platonic as kind of one unit of love that can be found is fantastic. Shui, are you ready to cast your vote? Because I mean, it's pretty obvious.
I'm going back and forth. I'm not gonna lie. I've gone back and forth.
Let's hear it then. Everyone knows I am toasting, I am cheersing, I am saying kudos to Chen Chen for writing that poem, a poem that I myself could never attain. I don't even think I've ever said the word shit in a poem. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's just so good. I mean, I could strive. Maybe I'll be inspired and try to do a poem like that someday. You
can't even write the word shit in a group chat.
No, I can say it. I will put the little asterisk in there.
It's my turn.
Oh, it is. I wish we had a drum roll. You need to edit a drum roll in here.
I have to. I'm gonna toast it. I'm gonna toast the poem for sure.
Woo!
I toast it.
Yes. Oh, fantastic. If people disagree with us, if they think it's horrible, I'm sorry to hear that. You can always email your opinions to us at tableforDeuce@gmail.com, for as in the number, I believe, for, so tableforDeuce@gmail.com. Let us know what you think of the poem. And also, if someone actually does, I'm going to be sending out Chen Chen's book to some lucky viewer, listener, what have you.
So I picked a poem that we could talk about next week if you're up for it.
I am.
And I came to this because for a couple of reasons. One was that line where from Chen Chen's poem, where I said it seems like it's a pivot. It's just like just a plain spoken aside of just turning to the speaker and turning to the reader and saying, I'm trying to be marvelous. So a few years ago, I took a workshop with Cornelius Eady, and he said something that really stuck with me. He just said, just quite simply, what is a poem except for the poet just desperately wanting to tell the reader, I have to tell you something. That's really what poems are. It's just like this urgency of like, I need to tell you something. And so I thought, thinking about him, I thought, I'd pick one of his poems that we could talk about, which also I think is sort of just a not in your face love poem, but also something I would consider to be a love poem. So it's called Crows in a Strong Wind, and I'll put a link up to it, but it can be found on the Poetry Foundation website. You could just Google it, Cornelius Eady, Crows in a Strong Wind. It's another short poem. It starts with crows like sitting there on a, they get caught up
in a strong wind.
It's about crows. They get caught in a strong wind. But it describes them sort of fumbling and the speaker sort of watching it. And again, it's a love poem. And it makes you wonder I don't know. For me, it opens up so many questions, which I'm excited to talk about next week when we discuss it. And I want to know what you think about it.
All right, I will read it. I will look at it. You seem to have done more research into the Chen poem than I bet I will do for any poem.
Like I said, I was trying to pull up. It was the first result on the search when I was just trying to look up the poem, and I clicked on it thinking it was the poem, and it was this essay. It is a beautiful essay. So like I said, I will link to that as well, because it was it just blew me away that her take on the poem, which was so opposite mine first time around, and brought up so much more for me to get out of it. But that's the extent of it, aside from me just combing line by line.
Oh, so good. It's still one of my favorite poems, as far as just that kind of irreverence against poetry in a way. I mean, it's I just think it's hilarious and great and tender, and just I don't know, just something to aspire to.
I think there's also so much more that can be, that could be discussed about just being human and the ugliness of being human. It's not pretty.
It is not. And I know, we're of the age where we have aging parents, and we are becoming aging parents ourselves. So it's like, yeah, I see my trajectory. I see where my body's going. You know what I mean? I'm like, it isn't pretty sometimes. We are more than these bodies. We are more than, the superficial vanity of our youth and all that stuff. And I just think poets could capture that so well. And I think Chen did kind of the same thing, in far as like in illness, like how it can just, 1 minute we're fine and the next minute we can be completely changed and don't have the agency of our own bodies anymore. And it's just that really interesting, fascinating, and sad and tragic. And if you have people around you, it can be a lovely experience in its own way too, despite all the horribleness of it, ugliness of it. So
even just taking bodily functions aside, there's
never
I think truth, obviously the ugly truth, there's if you really want to be truthful as a poet, you have to embrace the ugly. That's just, there's no other way to get to the bottom of things if you don't embrace the ugliness of the human experience. And none of us are perfect. And I think that honest line of, I'm trying to be marvelous, and also making my enemies throw up, that That is
I
there's so much truth in there. It just goes for it. The line just goes for it. It's like, I'm just gonna tell you what I'm doing here. And
Yeah.
and for some reason, even though it almost seems like a cop out to tell the reader what your intentions are in the poem, I think that it's more the honesty of it. If that line wasn't there, I think we would be having this discussion saying, well, what he's trying to do, right? He's purposely trying to be disgusting, and he's purposely trying to just be revolting to the reader. But by exposing that honesty right in the middle of the poem, I do love that. There's no facade of just a lyrical line, fancy language. It's just in your face truth.
Who amongst us hasn't tried to be marvelous and simultaneously made our enemies puke? I hope we have enemies out there puking right now. So one thing we wanted to do, everybody, was invite you to suggest poems that we should look at. If you think there's a poem out there that's underrated, if there's a poem out there you think is overrated, whatever it may be, send us some poem suggestions for us to look at. And please, let's use this to nominate other poems, and don't be mean about it per se. We're not about being mean. We're about looking at things and having fun in conversations. But definitely, if there's someone out there that you love as a poet that you don't think is getting the attention they deserve, send us their work and let's take a look at it and let's talk about it. If there's someone that you think we should have on the show to be part of the Toaster Roast, where we talk about one of their favorite pieces and they want to talk to us about why they love it, we would love to have them on. So send us your suggestions, tableforDeuce@gmail.com, and leave a comment, do whatever, and let us know if there's someone we should have on or a poem we should look at, and we would love to take a shot at it.
Yes. Yep. And in the meantime, next week, Crow's Nest, Strong Wind, Cornelius Eady. If people have any opinions on that poem, I'd love to know that too. So we can incorporate that maybe into the discussion as well. So
absolutely. So everybody, subscribe. I have to do that whole annoying thing, right? Subscribe, like, tweet,
smash that like button.
Smash it. Let's get past 9 subscribers. Dropping the deuce on Fridays.
Yep, the second deuce. The second
deuce
Friday.
It's a very special episode. The number 2 episode of Table for Deuce.
Just dropping the deuce.
Everybody.
All right. Till next time.
Till next time.
Bye. Goodbye. You were big Oscar.
Goodbye.